we're still a few minutes before the official start time. Thanks to all the early birds that have joined. We will get started in a couple of minutes. But if you have any questions that you would like us to answer, feel free to pop them into the Q&A or the chat if you can see them on your screen.
Or maybe just pop in the chat, have you had a chance to log in already and have a look? We'd love to know if you have, or as well. Right.
Okay, just received confirmation from one of the team members. The chat, I don't think is available to everyone on this Zoom, but you should have an icon down the bottom for Q&A. So feel free to add anything in there. Oh, Gina, good question. Is there any chance to get a certificate of attendance for these sessions for CPD?
I think we can do that, Vanessa. I think we did that when at our peak during COVID, when we were running webinars quite regularly. I'm pretty sure we followed those up with a certificate of attendance. So
great question, Gina. Yep.
Thank you, Gina. I'm going to say probably yes, but leave that one with us. Oh. All right, look, I think we might get started with our intro. Oh, there we go. Time's ticked over. 1 o'clock. There we go. All right. Thank you. Can I welcome everyone to this webinar today, which is on part 2 of introducing quality and custom registers in PracticeHub. This is the second of the 4 webinars we're running, and today's focus is on the quality registers. So thank you very much for joining. If those of you who joined yesterday, thank you for coming back again today. And at the end, we'll give you the dates for the webinars we're doing next week, which will be Tuesday and Thursday. But before we get started, in the spirit of reconciliation, Avant acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respect to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. So on our webinar this afternoon, we have Vanessa Law, who's our Head of Product at PracticeHub, and myself, Anna Maria Gibb, the Product Adoption Manager. So look, let's get started with what's happening in today's webinar. So as we mentioned just before, if you do have a question, please add it to the Q&A field in the chat. So there's a whole lot of little icons you'll be able to see, Zoom icons. The Q&A is the one that's active today. If you've got any questions, please feel free to add them. We are recording today's webinar and we will send you a link to the recording afterwards. So let's have a look at what we're going to talk about. In today's webinar, we're going to talk about the importance of recording incidents, feedback and risk. We're going to talk about our new quality registers module, including the key features. We're going to talk about how you set up the register, how you use it, so you, your team, everybody involved. And then we'll have a chat about transitioning your existing systems and processes into this new register. So some of the things that you might want to think about going forward with this. All right. So first of all, as you can see from the table on this slide, there's many, many good reasons to have an effective system that is used, because really it's everybody's responsibility to record incidents, feedback and risk, because they all then contribute to your ability to promote quality improvement and actually affect quality improvement. So these things being able to record these supports a no blame and open disclosure culture. And the other thing, of course, we know is that if we make it easy for you to record these things, you and your teams, there's a much higher likelihood that people will do these things. If you have difficult, clunky systems, people go, oh, I'll get back to it, I'll get round to it, and sometimes that may not happen. And of course, for those of you who go through accreditation, most of the standards require evidence that you do record and manage incidents, feedback, and risk, and that you can demonstrate the actions that you take. So this will very much contribute to that as well. All right. So the information on your screen is also in the release notes that you would have got a link to in both the email and the message on the PracticeHub message board. But you can see that essentially we've created the quality registers to meet your needs. We'll talk about how to manage what we call tickets. And there's some really good functionality around filtering, sorting, and exporting the information. Vanessa, is there anything else in terms of how we got to this point that you wanted to add before we look at a bit more detail?
I think the only thing I would like to mention, there was a question yesterday around being able to save filters within quality and or custom registers. That capability is not available at the moment, but we're keen to get people's feedback and see if that's something that you would be interested in the future. So great suggestion. What we will do is share a list of the questions and answers that are raised throughout the whole webinar series. So it's worthwhile mentioning that now. But yeah, the filtering, sorting and exporting in particular are quite different to anything else that we have in PracticeHub today. And we're very interested to get any kind of feedback on those.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. All right. So when it comes to setting up your register, and I am going to toggle over to the PracticeHub site in a moment, and we'll walk through that. But I think probably one of the things we really want to flag for you is that the configuration is very much what works for you. You have a lot of flexibility around the language you use, what you want to call things, because what we want is that the terms and the language that you use is meaningful to you and your organisation. We also have what we're calling tags, which is a really helpful way to sort and extract information. And as I've said, more information is in the release notes. So let's go over to the site. All right. Okay, so here we go. Let's have a look at what we've got. So here we are on the dashboard. If you go over to resources, you'll see up the top here about PracticeHub. There's release notes and information for users. You can see this one over here, the release notes for the quality registers. So in addition to product tours and things like that that are built in, also the release notes are also available for you to go through. They include some Q&As, they talk about getting started, the features and functions, and we also talk about the upcoming features that you'll see as well. So let's start with the configuration settings. So in order to access the settings, you'll need to go down the side menu and go to settings. And what you can see here are some boxes relating to locations, incident categories, incident types, risk categories, and feedback categories. Now, for those of you who have been into the quality registers already, you might have noticed that, for example, under locations, there are already 2 or 3 examples, but you can create your own. So if you, during yesterday's webinar, I created the sterilisation room. Let's create one called, I don't know, let's see. So it's as simple as that. Literally click in the box, type what you want, tab, and it's saved. And that location will then become part of the pick list for any tickets that you go to create in the quality register. Same applies with incident categories. So what do you call it? And we know, for example, in diagnostic imaging, they call it a reportable error. So if you are a diagnostic imaging practice, that language makes sense to you. If you're, for example, you're in general practice, maybe it's not relevant to you, so you wouldn't have that there. But again, the ability to create language that makes sense to you is really useful. I guess, incident types are almost like a subcategory of your incident categories. So, what kind of incident was it? And once again, there's a couple of examples preloaded, but go ahead and add your own as well. For me, this is really a good opportunity to remind people that not all incidents are just clinical incidents, that there are various other types of incidents that can occur in your organisation. So having a think about what kind of categories you might want to put in there or types. Similarly with risk categories, you can see some examples here, various types of risks. If you have a look at the policy and procedures content in PracticeHub, you'll find that I'm pretty sure the risk policy talks about all these various types of risk categories. So for me, it's a really nice connection between the types of risks that are listed in that policy and the types of risk categories that you create in the register. And lastly, we have the feedback categories. So, compliment, complaint, suggestion, pretty standard. One that I think is worth adding is team feedback. So encouraging your team to have a nice, simple way of being able to provide their own feedback. All right, so these are the settings. So certainly when you're going in to get started, this is where we suggest you start off. The next part to go is the quality registers. Now you'll see in the side menu, I've actually got quite a lot of registers listed here, but that's because I've created a lot of custom registers in preparation for our webinar next week. But what you're looking for here is quality registers. So when you click on quality registers, you'll bring up this screen here. Now, once again, in preparation for today and other demonstrations, I've actually created quite a lot of different ticket types. And you can see there's incidents, there's risks, and there's feedback. Across the top here, you also have tabs where you can just drill down and just look at feedback, just look at incidents, or just look at risk. Other things to note on this screen is the permissions. Now, this is a new way of creating permissions for people. So in terms of various people in our system, we can assign these permissions as to who can view the tickets. Vanessa, do you maybe want to expand on that a little bit, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Anna Maria. So what you can see when we've already come in here, I'll just start at the bottom of the permission settings screen. You can see users who can view all tickets. We've got a couple of people listed here, Joey, Karen Brown, Karen Smith, and Marion Brown. You'll note that these people, if you actually hover over the side, yep, great, you can see that these are administrators. So what we're trying to do here is let people know these are the people within organisations that already have administrator rights, and therefore they're not available for selection in the user box because they already can access quality registers. So it's just providing greater transparency and visibility so everyone knows, oh, okay, I can't add Karen Brown because Karen Brown's already an administrator. Moving back up towards the top, the only permission that we've currently got available in quality registers is the ability to view all tickets. Now, remember Anna Maria said at the beginning, and I think we raised it yesterday for people that were on yesterday's webinar, we believe that everyone should be able to create a ticket in quality registers. So there's no permissions that need to be granted to any user to be able to create a ticket. So by default, people can navigate to quality registers, they can use the create ticket function. When you assign a ticket, you can also assign it to any user. So if you choose to assign a ticket to a particular user, by default, without you needing to grant any permissions, that user can come in and access that ticket. Beyond that, if other users have created a ticket, if you yourself have created a ticket and you don't necessarily want other team members to be able to see that, you wouldn't grant them the view all tickets permissions. The view all tickets permission has really been introduced to give that additional layer between people being able to come in and create their own tickets. They can update tickets that have been assigned to them, but they can't see the detail of tickets that other people have been created. We want to make sure that you can still manage those tickets the way that you need to. And we understand that sometimes some of the information that may actually be captured in these tickets is confidential and not something you want to be readily available across the organisation. So in between is the view all tickets permission. By assigning it, any user with this permission can come in to quality registers. They can view all the tickets, but they cannot go and make changes to those tickets. So they can see everything on the list view. They can click in and they can view the ticket. They can view the history of the ticket, but they can't go and make changes to those tickets.
That's great. And Vanessa, I think probably, we have that functionality, but in general, for most of the team, apart from the administrators or the leadership team, everyone else really only needs to see the tickets that they're responsible for or that that they're working on. So it's not a case of needing to overwhelm everybody with everything, is it?
No.
You kind of really, reduce that kind of busyness of what people are seeing.
Absolutely. But there could be members, you could actually have principals in the organisation that you don't, are not necessarily people that would come in and be reviewing and assigning and updating tickets, but they may still actually want to be able to see what's happening across the practice, what's happening across the organisation. View all tickets permission is the perfect permission for exactly that. So without granting someone administrator rights that gives them edit access and other access, you can grant them the view all tickets permission.
Perfect. All right. Thank you for that. Of course, the other thing that we flagged is the export function. So whatever you see on the screen, if you click on export, that's what it will export. So if I want to export the entire list, I can export that. So the export function into a CSV file, which then, of course, you can have a play with the data to your heart's content as well. So that's really important. All right, we're going to talk about creating a ticket, but before we do that, I'm just going to toggle back to my slides.
And we've just got a couple of questions that have come through just on the screen that we're on. So if you don't mind, I might just
good idea.
Answer these as we go. So Adriana, one of the questions is, can we assign tickets to staff even if you don't have the PracticeHub task function package? Absolutely, you can. It is not reliant on any other part of PracticeHub, so you don't need any other modules or provisions. As long as they are a PracticeHub user, you can assign them. They will appear in the user list, which you'll see when Anna Maria gets in and starts to create a ticket and assigning a ticket out. We have another question from Gina. If the owners are not an administrator because they don't want all the emails responsibility that comes with being an admin, can they set up to view, edit, complete the ticket? Yes, they can if they are assigned to the ticket. So remember, as long as they are a PracticeHub user, they don't need to be an administrator. They can navigate to and access quality registers from the side menu. They can create a ticket. If they are assigned to a ticket, that they can then edit and complete that ticket because they are responsible for completing that ticket. So yes, they can.
Brilliant. All right. Thank you. All right, so we've been talking about tickets. So a ticket is a new term that we're describing, using to describe an individual incident, feedback or risk item that you're going to record in the quality registers. As we said at the beginning, I think it's everyone's responsibility to support and promote quality improvement, and therefore anyone in PracticeHub has the ability to create a ticket. Who can it be assigned to? It can be assigned to anyone in PracticeHub. When you would select assign a ticket to someone, they will see, you'll see a list of all your PracticeHub users and you can select from that pick list. And of course, you can change who the ticket is assigned to at any point. So maybe one person is going to do the initial investigation. When they've done that, they might assign it on to someone else who's then going to do a review or need to do something else with that ticket. So certainly anyone who is set up as a user in PracticeHub can be assigned a ticket. All right, so what does that look like in real life? Off we go again. All right, so a couple of things you can see on the dashboard. I've been assigned 2 tickets, and as an administrator, if any new tickets are created, I will also see that. So a ticket with a status of new, for an administrator, you will see that on the dashboard. Otherwise, I can see any tickets that are assigned to me, and that goes for any user in PracticeHub. All right, so when we go to create a ticket, it's pretty simple. We're clicking on create a ticket. And the first thing we need to determine is it feedback, is it an incident, or is it a risk? So let's start at the first one. So I want to do feedback. Now, what you'll notice, because I will show you the other two ticket types as well, but there's a lot of similarities in the layout. So essentially we have a title, we have a description panel. I'll come back to the assessment boxes in a minute. If you remember back over in settings, we had, what are our settings? Well, this might be team feedback. Does it relate to a particular location, or is the location not particularly relevant? But let's say it's the staff area. We didn't talk about tags. I apologize. I will come back to tags in a moment. But tags are basically ways in which you can create a flag for something that in turn you can look for things with those tags. So maybe based on this, it might be something we need to discuss at a staff meeting. So I want to make it an agenda item. This is where you can assign it if you're ready to assign it. And this is where we have our status. If you don't choose anything, it will default to new. We can also tick if we think action is required. So that again, that information will transfer back out onto that list view. So essentially, the title, the description, and the panel down the right-hand side are pretty much the same, apart from the category part. So if we have a look at an incident, again, title, description. The incident assessment here is a little bit different. In incidents, we're looking at what's the impact. What is our measure of outcome? How are we going to measure if we have managed the incident effectively? What actions might we take? And is there any communication required, either internally or externally? So whether or not, any person raising the ticket is completing this, or whether this is something perhaps practice manager is going to complete when they're reviewing the ticket, that's something you would make a call on within your own organisation. But again, down the sides, if you remember, we had our incident categories. So this is an incident. It's a clinical incident. It happened in the treatment room. We'll change this to maybe we need to update a policy and procedure and discuss it at a meeting and so on. So that's the incident ticket. Lastly, once again, probably all looking quite familiar now with our title, our description. The right-hand side is very similar. Our risks reflect the risk categories that we set up back in settings as well. And our risk assessment panels, again, action required, measure of outcome. So these are the layouts for the tickets that we have. Now, that's creating a ticket. So let's have a look at a couple of the ones that I've already created previously. So probably one that many of you are familiar with would be people complaining about the waiting time. So I've got here my title. They complained they waited for over an hour, bit of a description, action required. We want to respond to the patient. We want to consider signage. We're going to maybe consider a QI activity to monitor and improve the wait times. Measure of outcome, we're going to hopefully reduce the number of complaints about this. And you can see from relating to that, I've got tags for a QI activity and tag for the agenda item. The other thing here is that, like many other parts of the PracticeHub platform, we have a history here. So any revisions that have been made to the ticket will be tracked in the background as well. So that's quite handy to know who's made the changes and what changes were made and when they occurred. All right, so that is a feedback ticket. Let's have a look at an incident one. So maybe we've got, we'll have a look at this one, because this one is actually based on a true story. And some of you may have read this recently. So the doctor's bank account details were changed based on the fraudulent email. And you can see there in terms of some of the actions, we need to review our procedures about confirming bank details. We need to have relevant roles recomply with the policy. We're going to discuss it at the management meeting, et cetera, et cetera. So you can kind of see the sorts of things that we have put in this incident ticket. I will draw breath and make sure I'm not missing anything in the questions thing, but no, that all looks good.
And I'm just conscious of time, and I think what you're showing is fantastic. It might be worthwhile starting to have a chat about how people might start to transition.
Sure.
It's a shame that we can't ask you. I know we can ask you, but you guys probably can't answer whether you use the manual for managing incidents, risks, and feedback today. I know some of you do. You may use other systems, but we're keen to help you get started with using quality registers.
Yep.
And we'll chat about transitioning.
We will. All right. So I think we will do that. All right. So if you already are recording these things, have a think about, will you transfer existing entries to the new registers? Because I think it's easy to say from this point forward, all new incidents, feedback and risk tickets will go in these new registers. That's fantastic. But depending on where you are, perhaps in your accreditation cycle or what you've got currently on the go in those areas, it's probably worth thinking about what might you transfer or transition into this new system. So maybe you've got those registers and you want to put everything in. You might want to think about, that sounds like a big job, depending how many you've got. You might want to think about doing a time-based approach. So maybe the current financial year, calendar year, or particularly those of you who do accreditation, maybe, since your last accreditation assessment. So if you had your last assessment in, say, January this year, maybe you're doing everything from January onwards, so that when the next assessment comes around, you've got that entire period of 3 years, 2 years, whatever it is, available in this one location. If you're keeping things in Word, Excel, or a page in the manual, which we know is probably the most common way of doing that, it will be a case of determining what you bring over. I'd probably also think about what tickets are still open. So if you have a whole lot of tickets, but many of them are closed, you might want to say, okay, I just want to bring the active ones open, the ones that are still in progress or need to be actioned, in terms of how you bring those across. Again, asking people to create a ticket in the register. So I know there was a question there about training for staff. It's really simple. I'd suggest one of the first things to do as part of that training is get everyone to create a ticket. It might be as simple as say to everyone, hey, have a walk around the practice or the business and see if you can identify any risks. And if you can, maybe create a risk ticket. So it's a good exercise in terms of learning how to use it, actually do it. So those are some things we would think about with transitioning. Couple of other points we have. So I will show you, if you haven't already seen, in PracticeHub, in the content library, we've added or updated some policies and procedures about recording incident risks and feedback. And it kind of reflects the use of the quality registers. So again, check those policies, integrate them into your manual, and perhaps push them out for compliance so your team read them and sign off that they understand that this is the new way of doing things. Now, I seem to have opened the wrong version of this, but we did want to raise something that we get asked, or we have been asked by our early adopters, was about recording people's names in incidents, particularly patient names. So I guess the recommendation or the comment we have around that is the point of these registers is to focus on what happened and why it happened, not particularly who it happened to, so that you can then think about how do you minimize the risk of the incident or the injury reoccurring. So therefore, we recommend that you don't include the patient's name, but you could keep those details elsewhere if you wanted to. All right. So, Vanessa, that pretty much wraps it up from me and apart from mentioning the next webinars, is there anything you want to add as I just transition our slide over?
I don't think I've got anything to add at this point, but you just mentioned there is another question in around, videos after the quality registers. As Anna Maria said, we would love it if people could go and create tickets. You can set them to status of cancelled, but it is a great way to start to get teams to understand. We do have the in-platform product tours, which are designed to help people navigate both quality and custom registers. So for those of you that have actually been in, you may have seen that those in-platform tours automatically start. They'll start for every user, and they're there as guides to help you understand what do you need to do. So we've chosen a slightly different approach this time and not necessarily done a video as such, but we've tried to have a little instructional journey to help everyone come up to speed with how to start using both quality registers and custom registers. So any feedback you have on those would be much appreciated. I know we have Alberto. He is a real person. He is the image and the person that you see in our product to us. He is online at the moment. We'd love to hear any feedback that you have around that and how we can make it easier for you and your teams to really get started with some of these features.
And Vanessa, I think the those product tours, they pop up as soon, like particularly like for quality registers, any user logging into a quality register will automatically get that. It's not just limited to administrators.
No, that's right. Every user.
Everybody. So by all means, recommend your team, log in, click on quality registers, and they'll get stepped through that product tour. All right, we have a couple of minutes, so I will just highlight that on Tuesday of next week, we're going to do a session a bit like this, but talking about custom registers. So custom registers really allow you to have a think about, where are you keeping tables and Excel spreadsheets, and can you put them, can you set up a custom register so that you've got the information in one place? So I think you'll find that really interesting. And our last session on Thursday next week, we're going to kind of wrap up the information or questions that we've had. And we're going to tell you a little bit about what's coming up as well for PracticeHub. So once again, thank you for joining us today. Please go in and have a look at the quality registers. Let us know what you think. And we'll look forward to seeing you at our next session.
Thanks, Anna Maria. Thanks, everyone, for joining.